as we get into that late October timeframe, I don't think there's any better place to sit. Those big mature bucks are going to make a daylight appearance on a scrape somewhere.
It is finally scrape week. In this episode of the Whitetail Podcast presented by Moultrie, we're diving deep into late October hunting strategies with JJ and Brian from the Deer Society.
If you're not running trail cameras over scrapes in October, you should start running trail cameras over scrapes in October. That is the most fun time to see bucks hitting scrapes, showing off their rack. I mean, they're just bulked up. The best footage you'll get all year. I mean, it's just incredible.
This next window of opportunity is synonymous of being one of the best times to shoot a target buck, and this episode breaks down some of the tactics on how you potentially can do that this year, this week. Here we go.
When I think of a lot of the success I've had in the past 10 years, we'll call it, the success Brian's had in the past 10 years, we'll call it, I would say majority of that is in October and their cold fronts. So if we could just summarize the whole podcast, just October cold fronts, you're going to be in good shape.
All right, guys. Well, we just finished up recording a one-of-a-kind Whitetail Crips episode. We've done well over 100, and I don't think we've ever done like a facility and businesses, and it's just an incredible setup. So first off, thanks for letting us crash here for the day and just nosedive your guys' productivity here on a work day.
Yeah, well, thanks for making the trip. It's kind of cool where we work. We're lucky to have kind of the vibe of the hunting. All of our big bucks and all those memories are in our office. I know a lot of people have it at their house. That's the Whitetail Crips you typically film, but coming into work every day, seeing the big bucks, seeing the legacy deer, and all those memories, it makes it really comfortable, and you're excited to come into work. So that's pretty cool, and it's cool to share that with everybody. So I'm excited to see what the episode turns out to be.
Yeah, for sure. It's cool you guys being here, and appreciate you coming. And obviously our doors are always open to you guys. And, what's cool, just stemming off of what JJ said, is in the fall, like we come in here and it's like a deer powwow every day. It's like everybody's going to JJ's office or somebody's office and like, hey, what deer did you get on camera last night? What'd you see? Like looking at Onyx, man, like all kinds of stuff. So it's like that atmosphere all fall long, which is pretty cool here.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. It's like a whitetail incubator here every day, and I just have to imagine it's almost like a whitetail locker room to some degree. Like, hey, what'd you see last night? And like, oh man, even here today, they're like, he was 40 yards away, and I just feel like that's got to be really cool for everyone here. Just for a lot of people, their hunting friends maybe could live an hour away, or maybe only text, and to have that all under one roof is really cool. And I mean, you can just see that it probably makes everyone feel like they need to sharpen their blade a little bit. Like, have you been out? Nah, it's like, come on, man, you got to go. It's like the positive peer pressure.
Yeah, and I think I was looking back, we're closing in on 150 Deer Society hunt breakdowns between the guys on site here. It's probably 40 or 50 bucks that are either on site or maybe they're at someone's house, but for the most part, those bucks are on the wall here. Those stories are here. The preparation for those hunts happened here if they're a recent hunt. The building's not that old, but yeah, just so many memories, so much built right here. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Some of the, I don't know if did you talk about any of the stuff outside either?
Did not. That's maybe that's a outdoor cribs or
yeah. We're gonna come back and do some farm tours. We're gonna do that on our next trip up here because I think it would be really neat just listening. Well, I can tell you guys are both very meticulous, very detail-oriented, and I can only imagine what your farms look like with the amount of thought process that goes behind probably every single decision. And I also would say that's reflective of your guys' success here, too, just walking around and looking at all the big deer here.
Yeah, it's addicting. We definitely get sucked into the habitat, and sometimes we got to, or at least myself, I got to be like, I got to get some work done. I got to get back to the office because we're out there really dialing stuff in stands and fences for food plots and all that out in the field preparing, which I guess is part of the job, right? Which doesn't seem like the job. You feel guilty, like, well, I got to go to the field to do some work, and it is part of the job. So very fortunate for that. But yeah, even outside the office space here, we got some food plots and a little archery range, and the research and development happens right outside the doors too. So
Mountain
lion, black bear not too far off, a couple small bucks.
Yeah. No, it's, one of the cool things to that point of just the farms around, like, it's cool to be able to do some of this work and approach it, not just as yourself and talking to about it with your buddies and things like that. Like, I feel like truly, even though I don't necessarily hunt on JJ's stuff, like, a part of his farm, and I feel like he's a part of my farm, because we and same with everybody in this office. It's like this team approach. Like, what should we do for plots here? And it's kind of like this all around strategy, and everybody kind of knows we're creating content, in all these spots. And, that's part of the best part. It's like when one person has success, it's kind of that all around team success. And that makes it fun even when it's not in the fall. Summer's so fun, like strategizing, and like Brian Clary's coming in every day and giving us an update on how his food plot looks and how tall his clover is. It grew 3 inches in the last 2 days. No, but that's what makes it fun, and it's just an atmosphere that I think is pretty unique.
Yeah, it's deer camp every day. Well, to be frank, like the facility is way bigger than I knew. Deer Society was big. I knew the Illusion Systems was big. I see it in every store, but holy cow, when we pulled up, it is a big facility. You guys move a lot of product. At least that's the assumption based off of walking through.
Yeah,
here
it's a good space. We have a little room to grow, not much, but yeah, it's a nice size space, and it's very efficient. Product and trucks in and out.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have designed it to be pretty efficient, and then Deer Society is really just the back end here, and the almond eye and the video production. And I don't want to give too much away for the episode, but yeah, it's a pretty good layout, and a lot of big bucks, a lot of cool stuff, several studios, several conference rooms. And it's very lucky. I'll just keep saying it. We're very fortunate and lucky to be here because
sure.
It's very, very cool.
Yeah. And so, JJ, you were on the podcast here earlier this fall. We talked about rattling and grunting, and Brian, real quick too. So folks that haven't watched the Deer Society podcast, just a real brief who you are. And then I want to dive into right here, right now. It's October, and we're going to dial back when you were younger and figuring things out. I mean, everyone's still figuring things out, but I just want to take it back a couple notches. So, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. So, Brian Lemke, co-owner of Almond Eye Productions. We've had Almond Eye now for, I guess we started at the end of 2016. Been in the industry for a few years before that as well. Originally started producing or field producing for Driven TV with Pat Nicole before we branched out and started Almond Eye. Teamed up with Deer Society and Illusion. I'll never forget that first meeting we ever had, and you guys were in an office that was 2 warehouses back at that point, sitting down in this little office with Mike and JJ and Chris, and we could barely all get our chairs in there, and we were talking about doing a little video for the extinguisher, and how things have blossomed and grown from there. But just honored to produce all the content for the Deer Society, and obviously host a podcast with JJ, just create content. That's what we do, not only for the Deer Society and Illusion, but a lot of different companies and brands across the industry. So fortunate, and love being out in the woods and being a part of this team.
Yeah, so it's late October 21st, let's say. And just to set the stage here, how much do you like the next 10 days of this archery season, and how important or maybe not important is this time period? And I want you really to think too, I think sometimes we take for granted, like you guys have been hunting for a very long time, and I feel like everyone takes an assumption of what everyone just knows. And so I really want to boil it down another layer lower of a guy that's maybe just, man, I heard late October is pretty good. If we get a cold front, I don't know what to do after that. So how good is it, or not? Just lay it out.
Well, I'm excited about this topic because when I think of a lot of the success I've had in the past 10 years, we'll call it, the success Brian's had in the past 10 years, we'll call it, I would say majority of that is in October, and they're cold fronts. So if we could just summarize the whole podcast, just October cold fronts, you're going to be in good shape. But we've really excelled in this space in this month prior to November. That's my opinion. I don't know if you agree with it or not, but from what I've seen lately, we always joke about that October lull and, oh man, there's no bucks moving. Well, we've done really well during the October lull, based around just getting some patterns on some bucks, whether that's running cameras or seeing them in person or hunting kind of far off, moving your strategy in, waiting for those windows, whether that is just the cold front or the barometric pressure rising or the moon is a factor where we definitely key on the moon too. So, in a nutshell, in my opinion, it's my favorite month of the year to hunt. Cold fronts are just dynamite when you have a really good pattern on a buck, and the later it gets in the month, the better it gets. So it just keeps ramping up, escalating. And that's kind of my high-level view of October.
The Whitetail Podcast is brought to you by Moultrie. One of the first cameras I ever bought was a Moultrie, and they've come a long way. Whether after your first deer ever or this is your 20th year of hunting, Moultrie has you covered. Their cellular trail cameras have no SD card, very easy to use and set up right out of the box. I love to pair the Power Mag with a Pro Series camera. The Moultrie cameras are affordable, effective, and reliable with US-based customer service, 2-year warranty, and just a great camera. So the next time you're in the store and you're trying to decide what camera to buy, I encourage you to try a Moultrie if you want to support the podcast. So if a guy's listening to this right now and he's like, man, I wish I had a pattern of a buck right now. I think I know of 2 that I would be really happy to shoot. I haven't had them on camera for the last 7 days. Maybe I have 2 pictures. One was at 1 a.m. and the other one is at 11 p.m. on a scrape or an edge of a field. For that person, what would you say? Like, keep scouting. If we have a really good cold front, go out and just throw a sit wherever your gut tells you. Like, really break it down.
Yeah, I think if you're going to look at, I don't have one pattern now, but maybe you have a historical pattern of how deer move this time of the year, or a buck, oh, I'm waiting on a buck to show up. Well, maybe you can let that cold front pull the trigger for you and get in that position instead of sitting there watching your cameras. Oh man, he moved last night during the cold front and I missed it. Well, don't miss it. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's your window to jump in there. If you can look back a little bit at some historical data on the spot or on a specific buck you're waiting to show up.
Yeah. Ryan, what's your take?
I think we have a perfect example of this. Actually, last night, the cameras did that exact thing. So we had, a series of days where we had warm weather and it was kind of crappy out and nothing was really happening. We talked about it lots here in the office that we weren't getting a lot of big buck pictures or pictures at all. And then we had a cold day yesterday. We had some rain. The weather just lined up. It was one of those windows and boom, it was like last night, there's bucks everywhere. Now, I'm not even saying that target bucks or shooter bucks. It was just like the increase in deer movement in daylight last night even was that. And it was just one of those windows that lined up. So I think we're always looking for those windows in October where maybe you're looking at the moon, but those cold fronts especially, even after a period of, warm, like that first cold day, get out there and hunt. And I think especially, if you're wondering where to go, maybe you're not running a bunch of cameras or you don't have a pattern, like, as we get into that late October timeframe, I don't think there's any better place to sit than to go and find a scrape line or find active scrapes, because that's where bucks are going to be. And I think it even ramps up during like that October 17th, 18th, like those days it starts to ramp. And I'm sure we've shot a lot of deer in those late teen days of October. And then as October goes, it gets even better. But, I think 18th-ish, going through that 22nd, 25th days, like those big mature bucks are going to make a daylight appearance on a scrape somewhere. So I think if you're going to try to put any odds in your favor, even if you don't have a pattern on a buck, pick a cold front, go find an active scrape. And, I think your chances are best there.
Yeah, I think that's a great starting point. And I think the 17th, 18th, that's always sticked out to be a pretty interesting time period on cameras. Let's build off of that. So if someone has a camera like, oh my gosh, I just finally got a picture of a big deer on a scrape on the 17th. So what I'm hearing is for that person, like, go out there and throw a sit at that thing on the back end, or when the weather and conditions are correct.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing to add on to Brian's little topic there was rain. He mentioned precipitation. We've had some good rain. Deer move right after that. So if you do have a heavy rain through the night, through the morning, they're going to move early that next evening when the rain stops, and that happens all the time. It could even be like 2, 3 o'clock, and they're going to move. So rain's a big factor, too, on top of just the cold front. Try to be out there when that rain stops, especially when it does time up more with the evening sit. So that's another factor. And then heading into the 17th, 18th last week in October, that's when your communication can start to kick in on top of hunting scrapes and rubs and inside corners and all that good stuff. You can start to tickle the antlers a little bit, do a little bit of calling. Late October is probably the best time to call in a buck. One of the best times, one of 2.
What's the other one?
Probably post-rut. So you got pre-rut and then post-rut.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Well, all opinions, let's not, we're not gonna...
I mean, you guys do a lot of calling, so you have a little bit more data points than the average guy. That was something that stuck with me after our last conversation. Was I think a lot of people are conventional wisdom is like, oh, it's November, it's time to bust out the antlers. And to your point, like, there was a time to try it. It's right now. So give us a really quick Cliff Notes version on that too for someone that has never rattled in a buck or never grunted in a deer ever. They think it would be really cool. They've seen it on YouTube. They see you guys give the instructional videos, watch the hunt breakdowns. Like, gosh, these guys have it's magic. They have magic in their grunt call.
Yeah, I think there's a time where it really flips. I think 17th, 18th is maybe not the time it really flips on. It's probably more 25th through the 31st of October where you can call in a lot of deer or rattle in a lot more deer. But I think you can start to add it into your arsenal a little bit with some sparring and light grunts and seeing the deer and try to work that angle rather than blind calling during, more of that peak rut, post rut where you're just cracking the antlers together in a blind scenario. And deer hear that and run in, and they're really aggressive, high levels of testosterone, just looking for bucks. They want to fight, they want to battle. That's different than mid-October heading into that late October where they're starting to get kind of fired up, starting to just create. They want to be the dominant buck in that area. And if you challenge that a little bit, they might get out of bed early, investigate your plot, your corn, your whatever the case may be. I don't know what the situation is, but just get them out of bed a little bit early. Investigate, come in, check the area out. So not quite as aggressive mid to late October as late October or first week of November.
Okay. When you had mentioned, hunt a scrape, I feel that if someone goes out there on Onyx and they drop a pin on every single scrape, they're going to be like, which scrape do I hunt? And so I know there's so many different situations, but for someone just to have a rule of thumb, like how do I know what scrape I need to hunt? I know of 7, for example, and 4 of them are on a field edge. One of them's on a logging road. One of them's next to pretty thick cover. Like, you can paint the picture however you think that someone really needs to key in on.
I'm going to let Brian go, and I think I know what scenario he's going to paint.
I think it depends on, one, are you hunting in the morning? Are you hunting in the evening? How can you access that spot, right? So like on a field edge, obviously it's going to be easier to access that scrape line going in an afternoon when the deer are off embedded and that situation. If it's a morning, I love being on a scrape in the timber. I feel like it's a place that I can access when maybe deer are still out on those food sources. So I think it's really dependent. I think that I would look for, all of those things aside, I would look for what is the most active one. And a lot of times like a big buck or just a deer in general isn't going to just hit one scrape, right? So I don't think that you can just say, well, this one's just going to work and disregard all the other ones. Because I think, especially during this time of year, a deer will go and hit multiple scrapes, checking for does and checking for that sort of thing. So, I love to, in the evening, again, my thing is hunt the edge of a field on a scrape, especially too, like does are still coming to food on the edge of a field. So bucks can go there. They can check those scrapes. They can check that food source and check all the does in them. I think evening, that's a really good play. I like in the morning, especially after precipitation, kind of back there in the timber where I can backdoor those deer, get in clean without disrupting them when they're up on their feet. And get on that sort of pattern, I think can be highly successful.
Are you typically on these scenarios, are you specifically hunting a scrape? Like, let's say we get, imagine it's October 21st, there's a cold front coming on the 25th. With what you know right now, do you picture yourself being on a scrape that evening?
Well, and here's why, because it puts so many advantages to you as a hunter, right? A scrape does. So I'll paint a picture like in the Sticker 10 hunt breakdown. Like I was hunting over a cut cornfield. Now this cornfield's huge. And I was hunting in a big oak tree, and there was a big scrape right underneath it that I knew was super active. Well, it was a 5-year-old deer the night before I shot Sticker 10 came out in the field, and he was probably 250 yards away. It was a deer I called Wide 9. And Patrick is like, you think that deer's going to come over here? And he was filming me, and I'm like, yeah, I do. He said, are you going to kill him? And I said, we'll see when he gets here. And that deer turned, and it's a massive field, and he ended up 15 yards below us at that scrape. And it's one of those, again, advantages that you can put in your favor, that it's like, I know if a mature buck is out here somewhere, he's going to come and check this scrape because it's super active. And I used it to my hunting advantage. And another big thing with scrapes is like, the distance to a scrape. you know the way the deer is going to enter the scrape. You know, so you eliminate so many variables just that, like, not are just the deer going to be there at some point, but like from just a hunting standpoint and a killing standpoint, like you have so many advantages hunting that way.
Yeah.
So big fan of it. Yes. This time of year, ideally, you know, you're hunting over or by a scrape. At least I am.
I knew you were going to talk about sticker 10 because that one popped out in my mind too. Two other ones that you've been on that were very heavy scrape related. You know, you filmed your wife shoot. It's the hunt breakdown's called Stars Align, where that buck was hitting the inside of a standing cornfield.
Yep.
Sticker 10 was cut corn.
Yep.
Stars Align, standing corn. So more of a pinch between standing corn, wood edge, scrapes along that whole edge.
Yep.
And you're just catching them, you know, A to B.
Yeah.
The other one was Minnesota Monster, which is their 80-10 buck you shot, and that was a morning hunt.
Nope.
That was an evening hunt.
Evening. Yep.
So an in-timber scrape, kind of at bottom of a ravine kind of a situation.
Yeah, and there's another interesting point, and it gets back to which scrape do I hunt, right? So like there was a kind of this opening it was in the timber, but it was a small little opening there, and we didn't even have a food plot in there, but there was one tree in particular, and it had a big scrape on it, and it was active. And when I shot that deer, he came in and hit that scrape and actually circled, and I shot him kind of going around it or away from it. And I was hunting that scrape. Mm-hmm. When I went to recover that deer, I got up in the thicker stuff and kind of in his bedroom, and there was scrapes everywhere through there. Like I would have never known that they were there unless I went in there to recover them because I wouldn't have gone in there.
Sure.
But like understanding that deer came and hit that scrape in the open, and then he was going right where I shot him. He was going up there and he was going to hit every one of those other scrapes, guaranteed, that was right there. So, yeah.
That's a good illustration of you have to be over one, or it's a really good place to be that time of year. Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite scrape scenarios for a hunt breakdown is it's the perfect storm hunt, and I reference this one quite a bit when we talk about scrapes, but inside the timber, this property had some recreational activities on it, so people would ride, neighbors would ride horses, or landowners would ride, the ATV through it. So there was a trail in the woods.
Yeah.
Not maintained very well, which is awesome because there's branches everywhere. So scrapes everywhere. But mid-October, with all of, that green flat space running through the timber with branches overhanging it, like just the perfect scrape line, rub line for this time of the year. So if you can find that, that's a pretty common situation where people have logging roads or trails going through their property. Mm-hmm. Usually they're lined with scrapes if there are branches hanging down. So if you can get on the right side of that, play the wind, play the cold front. This was after a rain, so perfect scenario for what we're talking about. It was a morning hunt. Rained all morning. It got light. It was raining as I'm sitting in the truck, and right when we were just watching the radar, I was with my dad. We're watching the radar, and when we saw it was about to clear, we just jumped in, just like bolted into the tree. Got up, rain stopped. The buck must have been close because he stood up and did the dog shake, the wet dog shake, and rain flew off, and walked in, was ready to hit some scrapes, and shot him. So that's dream world, but that's the perfect scenario.
Well, I think just knowing the magnitude of potential when that rolls in, if it does roll in, like you got to be prepared and take a swing, because it really could be one of the best opportunities of the whole year. I feel like sometimes people are in like this hurry and wait mentality, and like, well, it is going to be November in a couple days or next week, and it's not a huge deal if I don't make this happen, or like, I'm busy. But we did a podcast earlier this year with Steve Shirk, and he runs 150 trail cameras on Pennsylvania public land, and he keeps really detailed records of mature buck movement in daylight. And it, out of the last 5 years, an October date has been one of the most productive days. And it was like the 17th, 18th was one year, the 25th, 26th, like this could be as good as it gets. So it's like, sure, just to set the stage here, and then you guys have the success stories to back it up too.
Well, your sticker 10 hunt, I believe it was the 25th, 26th. What was it?
No,
27th.
It was the 19th.
Was it?
Yep.
I remember that cold front though. It was good.
Yeah, it was
like,
a
this
perfect.
Is
yeah, it was
the window.
Perfect cold front that everything just lined up perfectly there, and he was on his feet.
Yep.
And that was really the first time that deer. So I had pictures of that deer almost every day, and never went in to hunt him. Like I don't honestly hunt that much. Like my wife would tell you differently, but I don't. I scout way more than I hunt, and I leave things go until there's a cold front, or till I believe there's a time where a deer is ready to be killed, if that makes any sense. Sticker 10, I had pictures of him every day. But I never felt like up until that point, he was a deer that was killable. And then cold front came, everything lined up. Boom, 2 days in a row, that deer was on his feet and capitalized on it, luckily enough, fortunately.
And now I'm going to flip it. Warm front during October.
Yeah, you beat me to it.
Still a lot of opportunity. We've killed a lot of good deer in October, but it's mostly water. We get bucks on water when it gets hot, and we do pretty dang well. Note before I get there, if you're not running trail cameras over scrapes in October, you should start running trail cameras over scrapes in October. That is the most fun time to see bucks hitting scrapes, showing off their rack. I mean, they're just bulked up.
Yeah,
the best footage you'll get all year. I mean, it's just incredible.
Completely agree. We had coined scrape week as a term because it's like such an exciting time to run trail cameras, and a new deer might show up or one you've been waiting. I mean, it's just an exciting time. Now on the warm fronts, let's talk about that too, because I feel that you got to go out to kill them, and then like what you just mentioned, like I don't really hunt that much. I wait for the conditions to be right, and so for most people that don't have a flexible work schedule, this upcoming weekend, they're like, man, it's late October, and I know it's not perfect, but I still got to go. So what do you say to those folks?
I mean, if it's really warm, you have no good intel, you don't have water to hunt, and the scenarios aren't that great, you could always just hunt a little bit more observation instead of just diving into a spot and blowing it up for the next couple weeks, which could be really good. But if you have a pattern on a buck, you need to go for it, which happens quite a bit when it's warm and water.
Yeah, I think water is critical. I think that's another key player during this time, is in any time of the year really, but water sources, that could be a water hole, it could be a tank, it could be a stream, whatever kind of water is close. I think, this time of year, bucks and does, they both got to drink. There's less moisture typically in, the food plots and in the crop fields, those kind of things. So they need to get water somewhere. Water, those social areas can be deadly, I think, through October. I think that's another reason we've had a lot of success during that October lull period. I also think water holes are a way, like as we move into November, to kind of crack that lockdown phase, if you will. Like as November hits and we all talk about it, you get into that lockdown phase and big bucks become less patternable. They'll get off with a doe and you might not see them for, 3, 4, 5 days, whatever it is. If you're on a water hole, those does that they're with, they got to drink. They still got to get water. And if she's going to get water, he's going to get water. So I think during that phase too, water holes are great. I will say another, thing during that October time frame, if it's warm, and you're going to go hunt, you don't have a pattern, don't have a lot of intel. I think if you can access some of these oak flats that are tucked away, especially maybe in the morning, if you can get in there and beat these deer back to their bedroom and there's a lot of oaks and a lot of acorns falling, those can be really good spots, even if it's warm, to kind of catch a deer in those first, that first hour of daylight before he goes and lays down, when it's a little cooler in the morning even.
Yeah, just try to find the best intel you can. Are they using a certain green field still? Are they, do you have an apple tree that's dropping late? There's opportunity to find some movement. Just be cautious if it's not really ideal.
Going through the end of October, how do you guys personally position risk versus reward too? I mean, I feel that's top of every deer hunter's mind, where they're like, there's a lot of pondering goes on during this period, because in November it's like, I just got to go. You got to be. I feel like everyone's been programmed for that, but October, I do feel that people are pretty just touch and go with their own plan, their own intuition, their own gut feeling, and I'm generalizing, but I think that would likely resonate with a lot of people.
I think how you try to keep it low as far as an intrusion standpoint is just move around a lot. We got different spots to hunt where you can maybe throw a little hunt at this spot or a spot over here. Maybe we're even hunting in a different state, and keep the pressure low. If you're hunting the same spot and it's one spot and it's a small spot and you're just diving in there every day, it's not going to be good long term. But if you can hunt low key, if you want to be in the field, or those are the weekends that you have off and it's not ideal, like make the most of it. Like I said, hunt low key, could be observation, could be water. But decoy comes into play later October. Had some really good success last year with that. Plan to do it again this year. A lot of ways to change it up.
Yeah.
I think that's a knack in itself, is just understanding when to get aggressive and when to not. You know, we've been fortunate enough to do a lot of podcasts too with some people, and like you get guys in, like Ben Rising's one that sticks out for me. Like he's just that guy that it's like he always knows when is that right time to just dive in there. Like, and it's a gut instinct, and I think it's a lot of it has to do with just experience. I think the other part of it is you're always weighing that risk reward, right? Like you're weighing the fact of how much time do you have to hunt? What are your windows like? In an ideal world, like, you know, and you have that time, man, I'm weighing those risks and I'm waiting for the cold front because I know the buck's going to be, you know, probably on his feet. So like I'm going to be a little less risky. But on the other hand, like when I do get aggressive, like I get aggressive with purpose. I think there's guys that get halfway aggressive and then that's where they end up failing. So like they'll understand they need to be in a certain area or in a certain spot, but they won't get to the spot that they need to be to kill them that day, right? So like if you think a deer is going to come down that trail, right, you better be able to get to that trail that day and shoot that trail. Don't sit 60 yards off it and watch him walk down that trail and then try to move in the next day and after trying to be aggressive. Like if you're going to be aggressive, my opinion is go in there, 100% go in there to kill if you're going to use that tactic.
I love that. Yeah. I can think of the stories. I went in there and I saw him, but, you know, I just wasn't quite close enough. I knew I should have been in that tree. I knew I should have covered that trail. Yeah. I mean, it's happened to everyone, and it stings because you were right, but you weren't confident enough to do it.
Right? Yeah, and if it's a spot that you cannot get out cleanly, that's a different scenario too, whereas if it's a spot you can, I can get in and out. We have some spots where you can really get in and out, observe, and then maybe make a move. But if it's a spot where you got to walk a long ways through the timber and around bedding to get there, and you're 75 yards off, that's a tough sell. Yeah. You know, to try to do that again when you're spooking deer walking in. So it's like kind of spot dependent.
Especially with a big mature deer, you only get so many chances, you know,
right.
and you have to make the most of them. Like one of my strategies a lot now is like we have on one specific spot that we lease. We have a lot of stands that are already set up, right? Honestly, as we get into later October, there's very few of those spots that I'll go and sit in. I do a lot more hanging and hunting than I used to, just for that exact purpose. Like if there's a spot that I know I need to get in, like I'm going to go and make sure that I am in the exact right spot that I need to be that first time, because a lot of those times you only have one chance. Yeah. So I think if you're going to get aggressive, don't be afraid if you have the ability to be a little mobile and make that decision and trust your gut and go with it.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to give you a little game here. You have to completely ignore, you're completely oblivious to one of these factors. Late October. You have to completely ignore the weather. You have no clue what it's going to be. You just wake up that day and you're like, it feels a little colder. The moon phase. You can't look up in the sky. You have no clue what the moon is or barometric pressure. You have to completely ignore. It's not even a factor in your decision making anymore. Which one is getting axed?
I'm going to axe moon phase, especially moon phase. I know moon position's a little bit different, but moon phase, I don't have a lot of data on that personally. I know some people do, and it is calculated in some apps and things like that, but I don't pay attention to moon phase as much as cold fronts.
Okay, anything lunar.
Anything moon related?
Yeah.
I'd probably still put that one third.
Okay.
But there is something to be said about the quote-unquote red moon and getting deer up on their feet. There is something to be said there. But if you got to take one out, I'd probably pull that one.
What about you, Brian?
Yeah, that's why it's a hard question, is because I do think that there's something there to it, too. Like, you'd like to think that you'd pay attention to all of them, but I think almost 100% of the time I'm throwing out the lunar thing, because I just... Like, as much as I think it, red moon, for example, increases your odds, like, I think weather more than anything plays a role. Like, I think if you still have a cold front and not a red moon, like, you can still shoot a big buck, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, whereas I think if you maybe had a red moon in, super warm weather, your chances are a little lower. So, I think I'm throwing out anything lunar.
Okay. All right. What's just something that you wish you knew, whether it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, last year, in the past, that you would tell, like, man, I wish I hopped in a time machine and tell myself that late October, this is extremely important or paramount? I mean, and maybe it's an echo of the weather or something to that effect, but just something that you maybe take for granted now that you didn't know or wasn't solidified in your mind 20 years ago, late October.
20 years ago, it's for sure weather. 10 years ago is when I started really diving into the weather thing, and had 10 good years. So looking back 20 years for sure, weather. But yeah, I'll just keep it at that.
I think 20 years ago it'd be wind. I think, paying attention to the wind and especially thermals and the way that they worked a little more. I think back then I had a little bit of an outside understanding of it, but it was like, put on carbon clothing and try to be scent free. I think, obviously I still think you should use the phase system and be as scent free as possible. But I think also part of that is understanding at least the wind, so you can understand out there what your wind's doing and try to play the wind. I think that would probably be 20 years ago. And 10 years ago, I think I would tell myself to just be a little more patient.
That's interesting.
Not go in so hard so early, and again goes back to trying to kill a buck before he's killable.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I remember I used to track how many days I could hunt in October. And I was so proud to do I hunted 20 days in a row. I didn't shoot anything, but it was like, I'm hunting hard, So then obviously not a lot of success with a lot of hunts. Looking back 15, 20 years ago, patience. Probably should have been more patient.
Yeah.
So that's a good one.
That's great. Yeah, because I think that leads into a next thing I want to bring up is you kind of feel like a dog with the tail between its legs if you still have a tag and it's November, because it's like, man, you likely hunted in October and you thought you had things figured out, but you didn't. For anyone listening, October doesn't end. I hope everyone shoots the buck they're after here in the next week. I really do. But the reality of it is 90% of those folks aren't going to. I will probably be one of them.
Me too.
So how do you build off of a unsuccessful October to springboard you into a great November?
Whether you're hunting public or private land, onX puts powerful mapping tools right in your pocket. See property lines, access wind, and weather data. I have thousands of pins from the last 10 years, and it is one of the most effective tools for planning a hunt, to in-hunt, to post-hunt. Know where you stand, know the land, own the hunt with onX.
I know how I mentally do it. And it's looking back at success from past years later in the year and like, there's still a chance.
Yeah.
Oh, I shot that buck on November 16th. Oh, I shot that one, December 20th. Or I shot my biggest late season. Or I had this encounter late in the year. So it's looking back and not just being discouraged is probably the biggest thing. And just season's not over till it's over.
Yeah.
Don't think that October is the only time of the year to kill big buck, because the late season might even be better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think there's twofold. One is you hit on historical data a little bit. I'm a big believer in historical data when it comes to deer, and big bucks doing the same thing year after year. We talk about that 80-10 buck, that Minnesota Monster hunt breakdown. That buck was never on that 80 acres except for basically 5 to 6 days in November at the beginning, and he did it 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
And it was like that deer knew where the first doe was going to come in. He knew where he was going to take her, and that's where he took her to bred. And after 3 years, finally figured it out and went in there and killed him. Excuse me. So I think if you have the opportunity to look at past historical data, especially for those November months and that rut time frame, I think that can help you. Or just if you've seen big bucks in that area chasing does, big bucks tend to do this. They do that for a reason. They get old, they experience things. There's probably a good chance that another big buck is going to do that. So, think about that historical data. The other thing is, I think that you can have faith in seasons change, but they don't always change for the worse. Just because the rut, the pre-rut's over, well, the rut can be a great time. Bucks are moving, and just because you don't have a big buck on trail camera now, doesn't mean tomorrow a big buck can't be in your woods. How many times do you hear the story of the guy that goes out and he sits 5 days in a row and doesn't see a deer, and on day 6 he shoots a booner?
Yeah.
That can happen this time of year. And again, even moving out of the rut into post-rut and late season, new bucks, deer are shifting patterns. So you're not having the same hunting experiences as you had in October. So keep faith in that.
Yeah. Two things there. I think having a positive mindset is just about everything. Like, I feel like to have a good time in the whitetail woods, like, starts with yourself and what your mental, what are you mentally like? This is gonna be a great hunt, or like, another day where I have a tag in my pocket. Like, those are two different people going into the woods. And then the other thing too, you bring up the historical data. If you do get through October and maybe it didn't pan out, or like, that deer, he goes in November, he goes somewhere completely else. Hope that deer lives, and keep really good detailed records for the following year, because obviously that worked for you. And so I think just keeping really good tabs on all the data, all the intel, really taking detailed notes, really remembering everything, because it's probably going to be somewhat similar the following year. Sure, there's crop rotation, sure, things change, but overall, the general parameters should be somewhat similar the following year. And maybe next year will be the late October where you're like, okay, everything clicks now.
Well, I think it's harder and harder too. Like, you talk about positive mindset, and I think that's such an important thing, overall as the whole hunting season goes. And it's easier to get that feeling of dog with the tail between your legs, especially with the way social media is now and all the things. Because, like, you can go on Facebook right now and see 20 bucks that were shot yesterday, and you're like, dang it. Like, I wish I was that guy, and you're going to continue that through the season. So, but remember, like, I think it's important to remember why you're out there doing it, and I think that as hunters, most of us advance every year. Like, I look back, like, even if I have a bad year, like, I think about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, like, I would have dreamed and prayed for a year that I had like the one I'm having right now, even though I still have a tag in my pocket. So, like, just always keeping that positive mindset, I think that's huge. That's awesome.
And I think I would do this without being involved with the business, but we have so much data, trail camera-wise. We always run SD cards. They're in folders from every single year, the past 10 years. This property, this camera location, this month, and I'm constantly looking back at that for the historical data to see what happened. And then you time that with, was that a harsh winter late season? Was there a buck did we get more bucks that year? And on top of all that data looking back, we plan all spring and summer, planting our food plots, trying new things, having a late season food source, having a green food sources. We're trying to plan so we have opportunity the whole year. It's not just all about October. So right now, like this morning, looking at a field, I've never planted red milo. We put in a red milo field because that's, we're going to see if that's a good late season food source. So that's something in the bag that we know we can maybe fall back on. I haven't shot a buck yet. There's that milo field. It's supposed to be a good late season food source. And we got standing corn there and standing beans and whatnot. So there's like always opportunities tacked onto the historical data of how deer are kind of using that. And we're always planning for the full season because that leads right in past the season into shed hunting. Like we're preparing for all seasons. It's not just we got to do it in October or the season's a bust. Like it keeps going.
Yeah. I think it's reflective of your success because a lot of people don't. I mean, admittedly, a lot of people don't think that way. They think of the week I'm taking off for work, or I'm the 4 weekends of the year where I'm going to be in a tree. And so I think that's, if someone wants to have more success or aspire to have more memorable hunts and have more encounters, like, but you have to do more work. And if you're not having the season you're wanting, like, okay, this is what I need to do differently next year. These are the shortcomings. These are the lowest holes in the bucket. I need to plug them up. So I think that's really important. I'm going to give you a scenario because someone is going to listen to this and they're probably going to see this to a T. Okay, it's late October. There's the cold front. You're hunting on a field edge. CRP, big CRP field. There is no food plots. This is a permission piece. It's public. And, okay, there's a doe family group out in this corner. It's like a 30-acre field, a little bit rolling hills. And you see on the very other corner on the low part of the field, that's the buck I want to shoot. So he's like 250 yards away. You do have some does within earshot of you as well. You have the black rack. You have, your grunt call or rattling antlers, whatever. What do you do? This deer is somewhat relaxed. He's just getting up out of his bed. It's the afternoon. And he's going to go hit some scrapes and cruise around, and maybe he's a man on a mission, maybe he's not. What do you do? Because someone is going to see this exactly happen.
Yeah, I think we talked about this on that other podcast, but work your way up volume-wise, especially when there's deer within earshot or can see you. I don't know the exact scenario. I'm trying to paint it. To paint it with the brush you gave me there, but try to start low with some grunts, just kind of feel them out a little bit. Some contact grunts. Maybe a little doe estrus bleat, You said late. Which date was it? Like October?
Whenever this cold front rolls in.
This cold front.
I would try 26, 27, 28.
Yeah, I would try to entice with vocalizations with the extinguisher.
Are you scared of scaring these deer here?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
We want to keep them there.
Okay.
We can entice them a little bit.
Okay.
You know, we can bring them in a little bit, especially when he's closing. Maybe they all come together at once. But busting out the black rack when they're right there, not ideal in my opinion. You know, maybe some light sparring if you're trying some things, it's not working, they're still grazing or feeding on something, they're not really paying attention. Maybe a little light sparring if you have enough cover. I don't know how much cover we have, but
you're on a hedgerow.
A little bit of cover, not a lot of cover. Yeah, starting with vocalizations first and just trying to see, like, did he hear me? Did they hear me? Did the does hear me? And try to, it'll be difficult. Mm-hmm. You know, you gotta play both sides, but you're trying to call to him and you're trying not to spook them.
How long is that potential calling sequence? Because I just want to.
I mean, it could be the rest of the evening. I don't know how much time we have left, but
it's you have 30 minutes.
Yeah, you're gonna call a little bit. You're gonna wait. You're gonna see how things play out. Maybe 5 minutes later, you're gonna try. A couple minutes later, you're gonna try something else.
Yep.
It's public land, so they're pretty well educated. Keep it natural. You just got to feel it out. I mean, if you feel like you can get aggressive to him, if he's doing something like his hair's standing up, his ears are pinned back or something, maybe you can give a little bit more. But again, and maybe that's okay, because if you spook the does, like if he's getting super aggressive, and then you're like, if he's getting super aggressive, and maybe you get aggressive then just because you're running out of time. If you spook the does, maybe that's fine, because maybe he thinks a buck came in and blew up the scenario or something too. But starting low key, that's my take. I don't know.
Vegas odds that comes together, 0 to 100. What is your conviction of that working? Like, is it a coin?
Is he 2-year-old?
No, he's at least 3. No, actually, no. He's a 4.5-year-old. I'm sorry. I'm making this harder for you.
I like this game.
10%. We got 10%. a 10% shot.
Well, I think that's fair, because I think, like, if you said 100, be like, yeah, okay. JJ, come out with me and be my caller. You know,
it's low, but it's not nothing. It's
not
worth
0.
Trying. You know, if you're not trying, then you're probably 0.
Yeah.
So
okay,
bump your odds up a little bit.
I like it. I don't think mine's so much different. You know, I start thinking about it, and I'm like, there's so many variables there. It's like, okay, which way is the wind blowing? Where do I think the does are going to go? Like, are they going to stand there for, like, are they feeding in the CRP photo? Are they just working through it? Are they going to be gone in 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Where does the buck probably want to go? Can the buck see the does? Like, I think if it's a rolling field, the CRP is tall. And if I think that if I throw some grunts out or some bleats or whatever, and he does not respond, or I don't get the reaction that I want, especially if I'm on public land, and I think that one of two things: the buck can't see the does and won't be able to see him run, or if I don't think that spooking the does, they'll run back. Now, there's obviously, who knows what happens. If I don't think they'll run that way and they'll run the other way, then I'm not afraid to get a little more aggressive with that buck, especially understanding that, like, hey, we're on public land. It's not like I can just come back here tomorrow and this buck's going to be unbothered. Who knows? Crapshoot. So, like, I might get a little more aggressive then, throw the black rack at him, make sure he hears me. Once he hears me, then every move after that, I'm just evaluating how he's acting, right? So, like, watching him intently, not calling at him when he's looking, and just gauging that scenario, you know, based on his demeanor. If he wants nothing to do with it, and, like, not even just ignoring it, but, like, you know, he seems bothered by it, then I just stop altogether, you know, understanding that, like, sometimes you have to understand, like, you're not going to call the deer in. So don't keep throwing the sink at him just to throw it at him, you know, but I think that's just understanding and communicating. Mike, you preach that, you know, you're communicating with the deer. You're not just calling at them. So, like, have a conversation or think about that in your head, what you're saying to them.
Yeah. What's one thing, or maybe one key lesson that you picked up working with these guys over the years? I don't know how much vocalization and calling you did in the past, but has there been any, it's like, holy cow, that makes way more sense now after just being here in the office every day and working on their work?
Yeah, I think, you know, and it's like there's so many questions on when do I call and how do I call. And I think it's when you break it down to thinking about calling like communication and not like calling. So, like, Mike uses the example a lot. Like, there's a difference if I just say, hey, how's it going? Or, hey, how's it going? Like, big difference there, right? Sure. So there's a lot involved in the tone of how you call. I think that, you know, okay, how do I use my calls? Well, Mike's like, well, sound like the other deer. What are the other deer doing that you're seeing? Like, are they really cracking their horns together this time of year? Well, no, then you probably shouldn't do that either. Do you hear some soft tickles? Maybe that's how you should call. I also think that, 10 years ago, it was like, okay, there's a 7-day window to call, and that's it. Like late October, you go out there in the morning and you smack a black rack together, and all these bucks run in, and that's it. But outside of that, you don't call, or calling's not effective. I think being around these guys more, calling can actually be effective all times of year, including early in the season or late in the season. But it's about painting the right picture and really understanding why you're calling, the vocalizations that you're making, and how you're communicating with those deer. I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, for people to get good, it's like if you're calling at a deer, you probably want to shoot it. And so like there's just a level of nervousness of like, I don't want to screw it up. Like, am I doing this right? And I feel like that, like anything, takes repetition for you to learn, trial and error. And that's I think for a lot of guys to figure it out, it probably takes a lifetime because you don't get a lot of reps in all reality.
And yeah, hopefully you don't get a lot of reps because that means you're calling a lot of deer that you're not shooting. But yeah, you don't want to educate, and we talked about this too. Like you don't want to just keep educating the deer, especially if it's this 3-year-old that I'm going to shoot him next year, but now I'm calling with him, educating him on my stand, on the sounds. That there's a hunter, maybe he picks up your scent. Like if you educate him years prior, well, now that tool in your bag is less effective when you need it. So use it wisely, just like when you're hunting. Like dive in there when you think that the odds are the highest. Call when you think the odds are the highest. And don't push your luck when you don't need to.
I like it. Well, is there anything else? Anything else to wrap up this final pep talk of late October? Just to reiterate, like, man, it can be an awesome time. Hopefully, some of the information here today helps you refine your plan. Maybe narrow it down a little bit more when this cold front comes in, or even if it's 80 degrees, who knows? But anything else that you guys can think of?
No, I think more than anything, just trust your intel, trust your scouting. I don't want to say scout more than you hunt. Like I would love to say that. I know there's some guys that just can't do that. But I think that, sometimes scouting more than you hunt and being prepared for when that weather is right, or you have that intel that you need when the buck is on his feet. If you can spend more time kind of prepping that, it can make you more successful when the time is actually right and the chances are higher in your favor.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary of that October time period. And then, if things don't work out, just keep that positive attitude. Know that the best is yet to come. You should tell yourself that every day until the end of the season. The best is yet to come.
Right today.
There's 2 days left. The best is yet to come. No, there's just a lot of opportunity in the year, so don't get down if it's not happening, but the best is yet to come.
I like it. Well, thank you guys so much for, like I said, the Whitetail Cribs episode is going to go live later this week. People are really going to want to check this out. And I think what's most unique about this Whitetail Cribs is not only the location, the venue, and the deer, but all the supporting footage that we're going to be able to utilize in this to really bring these stories back to life in a very rapid succession. I mean, there's a 300-inch deer out here. There's multiple 200-inch deer. There's like big framey deer, a lot of really unique dark chocolate racks. Like, it's going to be incredible, and I hope everyone takes the time to watch it. And, if they want to watch the full hunt breakdown, they can obviously go do that on your guys' channel.
Yeah, check out all the hunt breakdowns, but yeah, hopefully we give a good summary in the episode, and I enjoy being prepared to watch it.
It's been fun for sure.
Awesome.
Appreciate you stopping in. It's been good.
Good luck. Hopefully, you guys might already have a deer dead before this goes live, so hopefully that's the case. Maybe. But if not, I wish you the best of luck the remainder of the season.
You too.
Appreciate it, man. You too.